maybe I will end this video with a call out here to all atheists. Every atheist out there, if you're an atheist and you're with Matt here, now Matt says that he has a conception of God. He admits that. He says, I don't bring my conception of God into it. I deal with the caller's conception. I would like all atheists out there, anyone, if you see this video, shoot a video response, post some comments. What is your conception of God? Now, if Matt has some conception of God, I would like to know what that is. And maybe he's too busy. That's fine. I would like to know what other people's conceptions of God is. Let's hear exactly what this is.
Okay, Professor Anton, I'm going to take your challenge as an atheist and talk a little bit about how I see God and how I've seen him over time. I was raised in a house where my mother was religious and my father was an atheist, and so I sort of saw both sides. My mother, on the other hand, had the power in my childhood as far as religion goes, so I was forced often to attend religious services and to go through the motions. But by the time I was 8, I knew that most of what I was hearing was a farce. Now, that didn't make me happy because I wanted there to be a God, and I tried, like a lot of people, I think, to wish him into existence. A lot of atheists here don't seem to have experienced that particular feeling. They seem just not to have agonized over whether or not there's a God. They just sort of knew there wasn't. That wasn't my experience. I don't think that atheism needs to adopt militant practices in order to make its point. And I don't think it should be a movement, and I think that, as you point out, groupthink, it can be a really bad problem in any move, if it's called a movement. And I think atheism is mistakenly called a movement when it should just be a lot of people trying to figure out how to get through life, how to deal realistically with the fact that at some point their individual existence will stop, the point of death, without the necessity of the supernatural. And it doesn't seem to be that to me. It seems to be people trying to tell other people how to live their lives. Now, about your take on God, I find that interesting, and I find it confusing. And as you've pointed out, you take a Stoic belief, and you do not believe in an afterlife. But you seem to believe in a sort of order that is not necessarily teleological. In other words, we're not necessarily following a plan. At least that's the way I hear you. We're sort of, I don't know. I mean, I still keep going back to Spinoza because I understand, I think, Spinoza, or at least I've tried to understand him more. And I get Spinoza's God, who was, of course, the same God that Einstein adopted. It's not a masculine first-person God. It's not an interested in human affairs God. It's a God who is synonymous with the world as it is. And I made a video some time ago asking you why this concept of God is necessary to that. I still don't get it. And also, I think there is something about the fact that we do all face death and what we make of our individual deaths as atheists, that, to my mind, we should be talking in dialoguing more about. There are 2 links in the low bar for those of you who are interested. The first is to something about Christopher Hitchen. He's got an article in Vanity Fair talking about his death because he's, as most of you know, suffering from cancer. And also a blog of Ebert, the movie critic, the film critic, who has suffered for a number of years with a very invasive form of cancer, and has written a lot about death. And it's his take on Christopher Hitchens in Vanity Fair. They're both non-believers, but they seem to take different tacks about this. But I do think that sometimes I think that atheists, they either are a lot more savvy and sophisticated than I am, and individual death doesn't bother them, or they're not talking about it. And maybe it's just that everybody is just a lot more sophisticated about death than I am. But the fact that someday I won't be here, maybe it's narcissism on my part, I don't know, but all of my memories will be extinguished. What it was like to live in here and to have a first-person view of the world from in here. And I know that sounds like dualism, but it's the way it feels, even though it's not literally true. I mean, someday that won't be, and because I am I, and I live in here, I can't figure out what that'll be like, except that I won't be here. And as you point out, you'll never be dead. You may be dying, but you'll never be dead, because your consciousness will be extinguished at that point. So I understand that, but you still think about it, or at least I do. Anyway, that's my take on God, and I threw death in, didn't charge extra. You guys take care.